about halfway through my career, I went through a tremendous amount of burnout and regret. I actually thought about leaving dentistry, and I was just so in my head with anxiety and depression and regret that I'd chosen dentistry. I couldn't wait until 5 o'clock so I could go home. I couldn't wait until the weekend so I could decompress from the week. I couldn't wait until I retired so I wouldn't have to do this anymore. And, I said to myself, this is no way to live. You got to do something here.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. Today's guest is a full-time practicing dentist, a husband, a father, and an author. He's written 5 books. These books are ranging from, obviously, the world of dentistry, stress-free dentist, to the world of entrepreneurship, the stress-free entrepreneur. You're going to love this conversation as he shares his journey from how he ended up in dentistry and to now being able to share his experience overcoming that hump, that slump of the stress of the medical journey. Everybody, please welcome Eric Block to the show. Eric, welcome to the show. I'm excited for our conversation today. We had met briefly not too long ago to have a interesting conversation then, and now we have to share this information with the listeners. So thanks for your time today, Eric.
Yeah, thanks for having me and looking forward to it.
So just so the listeners know, give us a little bit of brief background where you started in medicine and where you're at now.
Yeah, so I went to Tulane University, and I did not think I was going to be a health professional or dentist. I thought I was going to graduate from the business school, and things did not turn out that way. I sat through microeconomics, macroeconomics, statistics, and I said, you know what, I don't think this is for me. So I had to choose something, and I ended up choosing psychology as a major. But one night I just missed my mouth and I broke my front tooth, my front central incisor, on a beer bottle. And I walked around with half a tooth that night. And then the next day I went to a local dentist in Metairie, Louisiana, which is just right outside of New Orleans. And I just loved the experience. I loved how they patched me up. They took care of me. They gave me my smile back. And I said, you know what, maybe dentistry is something I could do. So I started taking all the pre-dental classes, which were the same as pre-med. And then I took the dental exam test. I took a year off after college and taught tennis and took some of the science classes. That was like my year off. And then I went to dental school in Fort Lauderdale at Southeastern. And then I came back to Massachusetts to do a residency at Boston University. And I've been a practicing dentist for about 20 years here in Massachusetts.
That's amazing. And so much of this stands out to me through your experience, is sharing your experience with others. And the interesting thing is, kind of got like that teacher thing in you if you were teaching tennis from the get-go. But now you're sharing all of your experience and, man, all these little things that you don't learn in medical school, you're sharing them with other people through the stress-free platform. So you've got a .com. It's called the stressfreedentist.com. Tell us a little bit about how you got into the stress-free world. What was there an issue that came up with? I know you talk a little bit about burnout and stuff like that, but what happened?
Yeah, so after I graduated and went into the real world, everything was not peaches and cream, as they say. I about halfway through my career, I went through a tremendous amount of burnout and regret. I actually thought about leaving dentistry, and I was just so in my head with anxiety and depression and regret that I'd chosen dentistry. I couldn't wait until 5 o'clock so I could go home. I couldn't wait until the weekend so I could decompress from the week. I couldn't wait until I retired so I wouldn't have to do this anymore. And, I said to myself, this is no way to live. You got to do something here. And, like I said, I graduated with a degree in psychology, and I knew I'd always wanted to go through therapy. So I just called, I picked up the phone, I took some action, and I called a local therapist here in Massachusetts, and we just started to dig in. I met once every 2 weeks, and we dug into why I was the way I was, why I was so nervous, why I was so anxious, why I was so burned out. And it was all up here. It was me being too hard on myself. It was me trying to be perfect. It was me focusing on, the one bad thing that happened during the day. And I was able to overcome that. And it didn't happen overnight. It took a long time, but actually love going into work every day now. And I felt like I had a story to share. And that's where the stress-free dentist came from. And I felt like, if I could help a few dentists out there or health professionals, it was worth it. And it's just me sharing my story. And the stress-free brand uh, is oxymoronic. The only stress-free dentist is the one that hasn't gone to dental school yet, or the only stress-free physician is the one that's retired.
Hmm.
But in any high stress profession like medicine or dentistry, the mantra is that the stress won't break me, that I understand there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be good days. There's going to be bad days. There's going to be bad reviews. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be uncomfortable conversations with patients or staff, but the stress won't break me. That's the mantra, is that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. To focus on the good things, to understand there'll be bad days, there'll be failures. There's going to be days where you're exhausted, but that you can overcome this. And that's really where the stress-free brand came from.
And I'm looking at one of the posts you have on Instagram a while back. And alongside of this, I mean, you're sharing a lot about marketing. You're sharing a lot of like digital stuff, SEO, Google stuff, Google PPC stuff, AdWords, those kinds of things. I'm seeing a combination of that business side now that you're sharing with others too. Do you think that was kind of like a spark for you too, that kind of opened you up from that burnout phase, made you more passionate, was getting into that piece as opposed to the strictly the dentistry piece?
So this is an excellent question. And I feel like just after the quarantine, or I should say during the quarantine, a light switch went off in my brain. And I had felt like I had just woken up from a coma at the age of 44. And that's when I developed my first website. And I said, you know what? I got to do something. I can't just sit here. My office was closed. I couldn't work. We were quarantined. And I said, I'm not just going to sit here and eat my kids' leftover dino nuggets. I've got to do something. And this entrepreneurial light switch just went on. And I dedicated my time to becoming an entrepreneur. And some of that was about helping dentists with burnout. I started some startups. I started speaking. I started doing webinars. I started trying to fulfill that entrepreneurial itch that just came out of nowhere. And it was probably always within me. But it just took the quarantine to awaken it. And now I just share all my business practices, my systems, clinical, non-clinical health and wellness. And it's really just me sharing my story and what I do and what's been successful or not successful for me.
Yeah. And that makes me think of in that stress-free brand, congratulations, first of all, on the books that you've written. I think that's so impressive. Gone that journey myself in writing a book. There's so much that goes into it. So again, congratulations on the books that you've written.
Yeah, thank you. And by no means was I gifted or am a gifted writer. I was like a C+ student in high school in writing. I just worked at it, and it was just, a thought will pop into my brain, and I used to just let it go. But now I document everything in my phone or on a Google Doc. And if there's a subject that's in my head, I'll just go after it, and I'll just keep documenting, and then I'll start organizing. And I just got better and better at writing. It's like it's like a sport. You keep playing, you get better at it. But it's definitely, it's a lot of work. But to me, writing books and doing webinars or presentations or podcasts like this, it is so fulfilling because you get to reach an audience. Um, it's also a way for me to leave a legacy for who I am for my kids. What we're doing right now today will probably be on the internet forever.
Hmm.
My books will be out there forever. So for me, it's important to leave a legacy as well.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about the stress-free entrepreneur. What does the reader find in that book? You mentioned that, when you get an idea, you jot it down, you start organizing, get all together. Tell us a little bit about the stress-free entrepreneur.
It's a mindset book, and by no means am I the startup whisperer. I've failed more than I've succeeded. And that's really what it's about. When you're an entrepreneur, you're gonna have way more failures and mistakes than you do successes. And it's a strange business where you, when you fail, it's like a badge of honor. You can't really say that in many other businesses. And it's not for everyone. For someone, and I write this in the first few pages of the book. If you're out there and you've got a great job, you've got a great 401k, you love your 4 vacations a year, and you're happy with your life, great. But if there's something within you and you feel like you have a passion, you want to solve a problem, and there's something that you really want to explore and you're passionate about it, do it. Don't procrastinate. Don't give in to self-doubt. Don't give in to fear. Do it. You may fail, and that's okay, but at least you tried. And I say sooner the better, but better late than never in starting up an organization or just being an entrepreneur. And that's really what the book's about.
Interesting. Interesting. And you mentioned the Dino Nuggets, and I see that on your book list as well too, the children's book, the Dino Nuggets. What is that one about?
That's a story about really what I had mentioned. I said, I'm not just going to sit here and eat my kids' leftover Dino Nuggets, which are super popular in my house. They're
Yeah.
dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets. My kids are 9 and 11. But during the quarantine, my daughter was 7, my son was 5, and it's a story about life during the quarantine. Really nothing to do about a dentistry other than my dental office was shut down. But it's about a story about my daughter giving me uh, confidence to try new things. And I started a podcast. I started a website. I started writing books. I overcame self-doubt. I just didn't sit there and feel sorry for myself. And in the end, my office opened up again. I could go back to being a dentist, but I still love my kids' leftover Dino Nuggets
Yeah.
is the story. So it's a look back in time during the quarantine.
Interesting. And your daughter was 7 at that time?
Yeah, so she's 11 now, so she was 7.
So
7 back then.
it sounds like she gave you some life-altering advice there as a 7-year-old, huh?
Yeah, I think I probably have another children's book in me. I'll write one about my son in his voice. I'm still working on that one, but yeah, just writing books for me is it's fun. It's like, some people journal and they get up and they just start journaling, and that's their kind of their zen. That's me with writing. If there's a subject that I'm really passionate about, and there's enough material there, I'll write a book. And I usually do it early in the morning. I get up early and I'll just write for about an hour. And it's kind of like my zen. I get my thoughts out and it feels good. And early in the morning, I feel like I've been productive. So for me, it's just such a fun and rewarding thing to do.
Yeah. The book, I'm hearing a couple different streams of revenue. One of my favorite streams of revenue is the income that you get after writing a book. Because that is literally like mailbox money. Obviously, you could go out, you could advertise and market and, push the books harder. But I love that piece. It's a lot going into it, but once it's done, it's done. And that book will continue to sell, given that you've written you've provided value. one of the posts that you have on your Instagram is called the Dental Success Roadmap, and step number 4 of the 6 says attaining financial freedom. The book is a great way of doing that. You probably have some other streams of income alongside of your dental work. Tell us a little bit about what that step means to you, attaining financial freedom.
Yeah, so financial freedom to me, which I still my golden goose is my main gig, which is dentistry, and I'm not gonna forget that. I'm not I understand that is my main source of income. So I'll be a practicing business owner, clinical dentist until my kids graduate from college, because by then it'll be $1 million a year for tuition. But
Yes.
um, so that I'll always be doing. But I do have other sources of revenue. The books. I do webinars and speeches, whether it's virtual or live. I love, love, love to invest in startups within my niche. So I invest in dental startup companies because it's an industry I understand. And if it's a product or company that I like the team, I like the product, and I can use in my practice, I'll invest if there's an opportunity. That's one of my other passions. And the books are timeless. Some of them do involve technology. I have 5 books now. Some of them are, about techniques and technology that may come to pass, but they're mostly mindset books. And there's those will be timeless, overcoming doubt and negativity, and overcoming burnout and stress. So what I also wanted to say about having other sources of income, if you're a physician, a dentist, a lawyer, and you have side gigs, I call them. So for me, anything other than clinical dentistry is a side gig right now. They help me with my main gig. So having all these other endeavors and these other businesses help me in my main gig, because I used to just be a dentist. I used to just be dental office, dental office, dental office. And I would live and die by that dental office. If a patient canceled, I'd be all upset. Now I have all these other things going on. And if I have a bad hour or a bad day in the dental office, that's fine. I'll go work on something else that I'm working on. So to me, having other sources of revenue or other passions or side gigs, as I say, have really helped me with my main gig.
Yeah, I love that. And in my mind, I'm relating that to my life of, having this other areas or ventures to lean on to keep you propped up. So when the main thing isn't producing like the main thing should be, and then you've got these other avenues to kind of keep you propped up. Your business, your private practice, it sounds like, is that, I want to talk just a little bit about real estate there. Do you rent or do you own the space that you practice out of?
We currently rent.
Okay. Have you considered owning? I know this is very market specific most of the time, but have you considered owning or changing that? And tell us a little bit about your thought process with renting when it comes to real estate.
Yes, absolutely have thought about that. And if the right spot opened up with good visibility, good parking, which is very important, then I would jump on that if I could. And with other units available to rent. So the main, unit would be my own, and then I would have other units to rent out as well. So absolutely, that is one of my goals. It hasn't happened yet. But it's something I strive to look for and find a great spot.
Nice. And then your game plan to make that happen, besides thinking it, probably writing it down somewhere, what steps have you taken, if any, to make that goal a reality?
Yeah, so to tell you the truth, it's a goal, probably in the next few years. And I do write down my goals. I think that's extremely important. I have, goals for the year, 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And I feel like having goals and writing them down is extremely important. If they're just in your head, then they may not happen. Um, the shorter term goals uh, should be a little bit more realistic, whereas you get more long-term goals. Sometimes, things in life can change and you may pivot those goals. I have been focusing in the short term. We just went fully out of network, which is a huge deal. If you're in the dental or medical profession, we do not. We're fee for service now. We still help the patient submit for their claims, but we get paid up front, and then the patient gets reimbursed. That was a huge undertaking. So that was really my main focus for the last couple of years. So the real estate portion, maybe in the next couple of years, I'll really hone in on.
Yeah, yeah. How about real estate outside of where you practice? Have you considered acquiring real estate as another source of income?
Yeah, I've been I think that's also something in the future. At the end of the year when I have after the profits and the bonus money from my practice, I've been traditionally investing in dental startups and some other avenues. But yeah, real estate is something I'd like to look into in the future as well.
Yeah, that's great. The one question that I had on the agenda that you were still thinking about, I'm wondering, is there anybody that you think the listeners may not know of currently, but you think they should know? Has anybody popped into your mind since you've thought about that?
Um, I'd say I'm trying to think of some authors. Bruce Tulgan is an amazing author. I had the opportunity to interview him on my podcast. He writes about the different generations of the workforce. Excellent books. If you haven't read his books, go out there and get some of his books. There's so many other great, authors and books out there. I do listen to some podcasts that I love. 20 Minute VC is a great podcast that I listen to. Techstars, I listen to their podcast. So yeah, I think you stumped me on that one.
Yeah, good stuff though. No, I appreciate that. Last question I have for you, Eric, is if you could go back 10 years ago and you would set beside someone who had maybe similar goals as you, similar passions as you, after all of this experience and not necessarily trauma, but challenges and overcoming those challenges, gaining all of this knowledge, if you could go back 10 years and sit beside that person who was on a similar path, what would you tell that person?
Okay, so hopefully some of the audience has seen the movie Back to the Future, but if I had the DeLorean and I punched it to 88 miles per hour with the flux capacitor, and I went back 10 years earlier, if you haven't seen the movie, you got to see the movie. You'll understand the reference.
All of them, right?
Yeah, Michael J. Fox,
Yeah.
great movie. But uh, 10 years, I would go back. There's a couple things I would tell myself. Number one is I used to just focus on taking courses and learning about clinical side of dentistry. So let's just say you're an ENT and you're just taking courses and continuing education about your specialty of ENT, or your cardiologist, or you're a dermatologist. For me as a dentist, I was just taking clinical courses. If I could go back in time, I would have taken more courses on business management, leadership, public speaking, and entrepreneurship. The to learn those skills early on is so important. The other thing I would have done is reached out for help earlier. Like I mentioned, I had reached out to a therapist. I still go through life coaching. I would have reached out a lot earlier. In these high stress professions, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your body. You have to take care of your mind. If you don't, a lot of times this can lead to burnout. substance abuse, suicide. Take care of yourself. You are the most important. Your body and your mind, you only get one of them. Take care of them. Do it early. Reach out to coaches. Reach out to mentors, to peers, consultants, therapists, coaches, whatever it takes. Because problems, if you're feeling burned out or depressed or anxious, these problems typically do not go away on their own. So reaching out for help earlier, the better. Like I said earlier, better late than never, but to do it the sooner the better, because these problems will compound and just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And that's when you hear a lot of people turning to drugs and alcohol, abuse, or even worse, suicide. So take care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail right on the head when you say to take care of yourself first, because you can't help anybody else unless you do. There's the reason why, if anybody flies in airplanes, when they're talking about the masks, the first thing they do is say you've got to put the mask on yourself and then put it on your child. You've got to take care of yourself first, or you won't be able to help anybody else. So
that's a great analogy. I love that.
yeah, the airplane rule for sure. All right, Eric. Well, thank you for your time, man. I've enjoyed our conversation here, and I just want to mention one more time, though. It's the stressfreedentist.com, right? That's where, and then Stress Free Dentist, the brand in general, the listeners can go and find more information. And it's outside of just being in dentistry. It's the entrepreneur perspective, life coaching perspective. All of this as resources can be found in the Stress Free brand, correct?
Yeah, you can go to www.thestressfreedentist.com. And also just search my name on Amazon, Eric Block, The Stress Free Entrepreneur, and you'll find my books there as well.
Beautiful. Well, thanks again for your time today. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right. And to the listeners, thank you for your time. And like always, my airplane rule is thank you for your attention, because without your attention given to us, then the time doesn't matter. So thank you for your attention. If you have any questions for us, info@physicianwealthsystems.com. Shoot us an email if you want to be a guest. If you know a guest that you'd like for us to have on the show, that's great. And until next time, this is Real Estate Mogul MD.